Welcome back, everyone. This is the fifth and final explainer in our series. And today, we're basically going to pry open a historical time capsule. We are going to look at exactly how ancient human ingenuity laid the absolute groundwork for the modern world we live in right now. Throughout this series, we've explored some pretty incredible events and eras, but today, we're zeroing in on the actual tools that built our current reality. I think we often take the modern conveniences around us totally for granted. We kind of just assume they materialized out of thin air, or maybe that they belong exclusively to recent generations. But honestly, the truth is that the blueprint of our modern existence was drafted centuries and sometimes millennia ago. Today, we're looking at what is essentially a grand relay race of knowledge, a race passed across continents and empires, culminating in the world we know today. Let's dive in.
So picture this for a second. Imagine discovering a locked ancient chest buried deep in the earth. You pry it open, and inside, you don't find gold or silver, but rather the raw seeds of our modern existence. Just four fundamental ideas passed like a baton across civilizations, carefully refined by entirely different cultures over hundreds of years. What if I told you that without these specific, isolated sparks of ancient genius, global trade, modern nations, and literally even the screen you're looking at right now just wouldn't exist? It's a pretty wild thought, right? Well, today we are unlocking that chest. We're going to trace the explosive, illuminating, and world-shrinking journeys of these four incredible inventions.
All right, Section 1, Navigating the Unknown.
Okay, so before this first invention, sailors were absolutely chained to coastlines. They were terrified of the vast, featureless oceans, and for good reason. But then, a brilliant cross-cultural evolution of technology changed absolutely everything. I'm talking about the magnetic compass. Step 1 of this relay race. The ancient Chinese discovered the magnetic properties of lodestone way before anyone else, utilizing it for land and early maritime navigation. Then, they hand off the baton. Step 2. Arab mariners adopt this total game-changer by the 9th century. They used it to safely cross the Red Sea and the Persian Gulf, completely mastering the treacherous waters of the East. And then, Step 3, it finally reaches the hands of Europeans and Crusaders by the 12th century. This is just an incredible relay race of knowledge. It wasn't just one lone genius in a vacuum. It was a massive, collaborative human effort that spanned thousands of miles and hundreds of years.
And all of this shared cross-cultural knowledge finally clicks into its definitive form in the year 1302. After centuries of being passed from east to west, an inventor in the maritime hub of Naples, Italy, finally perfected the maritime compass. He took all that inherited, ancient knowledge and refined it into the super-reliable, practical instrument that would soon guide ships across totally uncharted oceans. This is what connected the continents and really kicked off the age of global trade. Without that culmination in 1302, the map of the world as we know it remains a complete mystery.
Moving right along to Section 2, The Spark of Power.
So we transition now from physical exploration to physical power. We're looking at an invention that entirely reshaped the mechanics of human conflict and literally redrew the borders of empires. Just imagine the sharp, acrid smell of sulfur cutting through the air. Gunpowder. It originated in China right around the dawn of the Christian era. And for centuries, it was this closely guarded secret, a mysterious powder that could conjure fire and noise. But secrets of that magnitude never stay hidden forever. By the mid-7th century, Arab forces were harnessing its terrifying potential, utilizing it as an incendiary weapon during the siege of Mecca in 690 AD. Slowly but inexorably, this volatile mixture made its way westward, finally hitting Europe by the year 1257 AD. And man, the world was about to become a much louder and much more dangerous place.
Which brings us to a massively crucial point in time, the year 1270. This is the heavy historical moment when the English chemist and monk Roger Bacon formally documented the exact formula for gunpowder in the West. He wrote down the precise mixture, effectively dragging this terrifying, world-altering chemistry out of the shadows and placing it directly into the hands of European tacticians. From this exact moment onward, the countdown to modern warfare was ticking.
Now, there is a stark, fascinating contrast in how this technology was actually deployed over time. On the left side here, we see the deep roots of artillery. Chinese forces had known about the properties of gunpowder and early projectile devices for essentially 2 millennia, 2,000 years. But look over at the right side. Once Europe adapted this technology around 1325, things escalated with terrifying speed. By 1346, the English king Edward III was deploying utterly devastating cannons against the French at the Battle of Crecy. So we see ancient Chinese innovations evolving rapidly into the heavy battlefield artillery that would eventually shatter castle walls and redefine European warfare forever. Almost overnight, the sword and the shield were suddenly obsolete.
Let's slow it down a bit. For Section 3, Preserving Human History.
We've seen how humanity learned to navigate the oceans and conquer the battlefield. But honestly, none of that matters if the knowledge itself is lost, right? Geographically, information storage had to take a massive leap to conquer time itself. Now, in antiquity, the ancient Egyptians gave us papyrus, which was brilliant, for sure, but it was incredibly fragile and limited. But then, a huge breakthrough happens. In 651 AD, in the city of Samarkand, the technique of producing high-quality paper from cotton is adopted from the Chinese. And this was a total revolution. It was durable, it was easily writable, and it could hold the fragile spark of human intellect securely. Arab traders and scholars grabbed hold of this incredible technology, and by 1100 AD, they had set up thriving paper mills all the way over in Spain. The canvas of human history had finally, fully been laid out across the continents.
And this preservation of knowledge, it ultimately builds into an absolute explosion of mass communication. Because, look, having paper is great, but copying books by hand took years. Over on the left, we have the ancient Chinese method. They brilliantly figured out how to carve entire pages into wooden blocks to print. And it worked, but it was incredibly slow and rigid. I mean, if you made a single typo, you had to literally carve the whole block all over again. Then, on the right, we have Johannes Gutenberg's massive, world-altering leap in the 15th century. He didn't just invent printing out of nowhere. He built upon it by using movable, metal-type cast-in molds. This was a game-changer. You could rearrange the letters, print a page, and then take those exact same letters to print a completely different page tomorrow.
1450. I really want the absolute weight of this number to sink in, almost like the heavy, rhythmic clack of a metal printing press. 1450 is the year Gutenberg printed the Latin Bible in Mainz, Germany. This was the exact moment that intellectual immortality was unlocked for the masses. Ideas, science, history, rebellion, it could all now be replicated thousands of times over, spreading faster than any army could ever march. It is, without a doubt, one of the most pivotal years in the entire history of the human race.
And finally, Section 4, Connecting Past to Present.
As we bring this 5-part explainer series to a close, I think it's so vital to just take a step back and look at the magnificent tapestry we've unraveled here. Every map you use on your phone, every bound book sitting on your shelf, every modern structure of power, literally none of it is entirely new. The breathtaking architectural triumphs of the past, like the magnificent domes of ancient Constantinople, stand as a permanent testament to our shared human progress. I really want you to take this away. Our modern reality is entirely built on this global relay race of ancient brilliance. The Chinese, the Arabs, the Europeans, no single civilization did this alone. They shared, they borrowed, they adapted, and they perfected. The compass, gunpowder, paper, the printing press, they are quite literally the invisible foundations of the room you are sitting in right now.
And so that brings us to the ultimate question. The past preserved us, right? Their sheer ingenuity survived centuries of war, plague, and time just to give us the modern world. So, I leave you with this thought to chew on. What will we preserve for the future? When humanity inevitably opens the time capsule 1,000 years from now, which of our modern ideas will they look back on as the seed of their existence? Thank you so much for joining me on this incredible journey through this explainer series. Keep learning, keep questioning everything, and I'll see you next time.